Good evening. We'll get started. My name is Tom Stolz. I'm the county manager for Sedgwick County. And off to my flank is a lot of staff from Sedgwick County. We have two of these coming up. This is a roundtable discussion for the Sedgwick County budget. And the speaker after me is Lindsay Poe-Rousseau. She's our finance director. She will give you kind of the history of where we're at in our budget right now, but I'll preface it by saying it's decision time. In the next 2 or 3 months, the commission will ratify our 2025 budget in August. And so all decisions on the money we're going to spend in the year ahead has to be made now within the next 2 or 3 months. So very quickly, just an overview of where we're going to go tonight. We're going to try to be very efficient with your time. We're going to try to do this in 90 minutes. We're going to split it up into 3 30-minute segments. The first segment is the presentation part. I will go over quickly the role of county government, a little bit of the differences between county government and City of Wichita, or municipal governments and state governments. So that will 5 or 10 minutes. Then Lindsay will come up and give you an overview on our current financial situation, the forecast, what our economic outlook looks like, and then a budget timeline, which is where we're at within the budget process. We think that'll take 20 to 30 minutes total, and then we're going to break into, we'll see how many people show up here. We are right at a point where we break into small groups and go over some questions, any questions you may have on the county budget. Then we're going to bring you back in for the last 30 minutes or the last third of our time and we'll do some interactive questioning. And if you have a smartphone, there's a way you can do interactive work. And if not, we have a paper option for those that don't have a smartphone. And what we want from our citizens here tonight is your idea or thoughts on how we should prioritize. I will tell you, in any government budget, whether it's city, county, or state, federal, there is a way more ask than there is resource available. Their tax dollars are finite in nature. There's never enough, so we have to, like the Sedgwick County, like everyone else, has to prioritize, and that prioritization process is what we need citizen input for. County going into next year, and Lindsay will cover this, we're already facing deficits, so we know we're going to have to come in and make some cuts, and we look for suggestions from citizens on where and how we should make cuts. And I will tell you, speaking for the commissioners, and I know we have Commissioner Dennis is here, Chairman Beatty is here, I think I saw Commissioner Howell walk in. We have our elected clerk, Kelly Arnold, and our treasurer, Brandy Bailey, here. I will tell you that the elected officials, we're missing a couple of commissioners, but I'll speak for them. Our property taxes are high enough, right? Our taxation rate is high enough. So the commission's instruction to the staff as we work forward with budget is do what you can, cut what you have to, don't raise taxes. So I wait to work in any government structure where the elected officials say, go ahead and raise some taxes, let's do more. That's not happening, and it's not happening here either. So with that, let's talk about role of the county government. And did everybody get a hard packet of this? Do we have hard copies of this out? Good. Yeah, everybody has a hard copy. That is what we call the very busy organizational chart of Sedgwick County. Now, on this chart are 5 elected commissioners. They run the budget and the show for the county. They are your representatives that you elect every 4 years to manage finances. In addition, though, this is what makes county government a little bit unique. It makes it different from City of Wichita government or Derby or Park City. We have 5 other elected officials, 2 of which are here. And then there's a register of deeds, that's Tanya Buckingham. Those are elected by the people of Sedgwick County, countywide election, and yet they fall under the auspices of Sedgwick County. We fund their offices and budget their offices, so they're part of the system. We also have an elected sheriff and an elected district attorney. So we have 5 other elected officials in addition to our 5 commissioners. There are 2 appointed officials in the government system. There are our election commissioner and our appraiser. Both report under the Sedgwick County budget and structure. So we have the Sedgwick County budget has to pay for those operations, elections, and appraiser processes. Within this org chart, there are 7 divisions, 44 different departments 9 ancillary functions, and an ancillary function is, for example, the county manages the zoo, manage exploration place, the extension center. There's other management pieces there, so that's 44 departments where there's people and function, 9 ancillary authorities, and then let's not forget we also have to pay for and fund a large portion of the 18th Judicial District court system. So there's an entire court process within the county structure. So it makes for a very busy organizational chart. It is a non-pyramid for those of you who are organizational chart freaks. There's always at the top of every government chart are the people. The people elect officials to represent them. And then there's a staff, generally a manager, and under he or she is a pyramid structure of people reporting to that manager. That is not the way county government is set up. You can see by looking across here, there are a lot of elected officials. I do not report to Kelly Arnold or Brandy, but I work with them. We work together to serve the 530,000 people of Sedgwick County, same with DA and same with sheriff. So it's a unique government structure. Well, and Commissioner Meissner has showed up. Our City of Wichita mayor is here. Welcome, Mayor. Very good. Okay. Oh, and Commissioner Lopez is here. So we are all here. All 5 commissioners are now here. All right. Let's talk a little bit about in county government, which again, we are different from city governments. We have some departments and functions which are directly correlated to state of Kansas activities. In other words, we are boots on the ground at the local level for state functions. So we have this split up into 2 discussions. One is where we are direct conduit of the state, and one where we provide simply county functions for Sedgwick County citizens only. So a lot of times what we run into in our budget is from a discretion perspective, we might like to cut something, but if it's a state of Kansas function which we are obligated to manage and operate with, it becomes non-discretionary for the commissioners and we have to fund it. So that we'll talk more about that in a bit. And we'll start from the top down. The very first right of every citizen is to vote. We live in a free democracy, so we have an elections commissioner who is Laura Rainwater, but she does not work necessarily directly for the commission. She is an appointee by the Secretary of State of Kansas. So we budget her, we pay for her operations, we pay for elections every year, and yet she reports to the Secretary of State. She reports to Scott Schwab. We also assess properties. That's how we send out property tax bills, which we all love to get twice a year, right? That is our appraiser's office. Mark Clark is our appraiser. He has to every year try to determine what our property is worth in comparative to what other properties around us are worth, or what it would cost us to replace our properties if they would be blown away in a storm or in a disaster, what it would cost us to pay those back. And he bases that valuation, and that's how we are taxed on our property. And that's where your property tax bill comes from. And I'll put a caveat on here that when you get your property tax bill, only about 1/4 of it is Sedgwick County. A lot of it is school district and whatever municipality you live in, and a township if you live in an unincorporated county. So the county part of that budget is only about 26%. We also collect taxes. That's what Brandy does. As the treasurer. So when you mail your taxes in, and remember only 1/4 of it comes from Sedgwick County, you're mailing them to Brandy, and then her offices disseminate those taxes to the municipal governments and the other taxing entities that are within our jurisdiction. We have public document records. That's our elected clerk and register of deeds. Those are, again, elected offices. It's state statutory-driven function that they provide. We have several sorts of public safety. We have a sheriff, a DA, and of course the 18th Judicial District that I mentioned. They all have conduits to the state of Kansas, especially the courts and district attorney report to the Office of Judicial Affairs, and parts of the sheriff office do as well. We have a human and mental health services area. That's our Department of Aging and Disability Services. Locally, they report to a state Department of Aging and Disability, so they're a conduit to the state of Kansas. Public health, this became famous during COVID, right? We have a local health department who reports basically to the Kansas Department of Health and Environment, and there's a relationship between Kansas Health Department and the CDC at the federal level. That was a wacky system when we ran through COVID. We had to try to make all of that system work together, and it was a challenge. We have a facet of community corrections, which we have a state, Kansas Department of Community Corrections, so our community corrections is a conduit of that. We have an emergency management department that we run here. They are part of the Kansas Department of Emergency Management, or KDEM. And then on our county engineer public works entity, our manager, our engineer is here. There is a state portion of that on highways, and you think about all the roads we drive on that have a touch point with Kansas Department of Transportation. City of Wichita will touch that a lot of time. The county will touch it. Other cities, townships. So there is a conduit that is a state-driven function. He will show up again on the other map of, he does a lot of local work too, just for Sedgwick County people. And then statutorily, we have to have a coroner in our county function. On the direct services, which we say are not state mandated, you think about EMS and all of the operations that go with that department and the Office of Medical Director. It is not necessary or state driven that the county run it. However, every county has to have an entity that does that. It can be a private entity. It could be a municipal entity that drives that. In our jurisdiction in Sedgwick County, we, the county, have run that for many years and will continue to do so many years in the future. It's quasi-state mandated, but it doesn't have to be the county that runs that. Same with 911 communications. The county doesn't have to run it, but somebody inside the county has to run 911, city or private entity. We have our own fire district number 1, which is a separate taxing entity. A lot of the budget we'll talk to tonight will not necessarily include the fire budget portion. They have their own separate mill levy affixed in the county, and they serve unincorporated county clients and a lot of Class 2 and Class 3 cities. City of Wichita has its own fire department, so does Derby City, but we serve a lot of the other smaller cities around Sedgwick County. Then we have the metropolitan groups, Metropolitan Area Building and Construction, Metropolitan Area Planning Department. Those are services that reside within Wichita, Sedgwick County. They are joint functions which we split and share with the City of Wichita. And that's for anything building, right? Any land management issue, any building of a commercial building, any building of a residence, all goes through those departments. And we basically essentially split that cost with the City of Wichita so that we have one unified group that works together. So no matter where you go to build in the county, it's one area, one-stop shop. We have a regional forensic science center, which does all of the DNA testing, and a lot of other functions that police and sheriff agencies need done to successfully prosecute criminal cases. For those of you that are old enough, it's the Quincy group, right? The Dr. Quincy and his medical examiner group. They do a lot of work, and they're behind the scenes. You'll see in our budget, it's costly, it's expensive to run those kinds of tests. And it's whatever the court drives us to do, we have to do there. So if they want best evidence, it has to go through the Regional Forensic Science Center. We have to provide that best evidence, and it's a costly function. And then Public Works is back on for all the tall weeds and grass and the mowing of ditches and all the kinds of things they do for county residents specifically. Okay, and then we get into some of the ancillary functions. We're like any other company, right? We have to have a finance department. You'll hear from our CFO tonight. There has to be, we want to support and grow the county. So in conjunction with the City of Wichita, we have an economic development group that works with the Greater Wichita Partnership. There shouldn't be an acronym on here. I'll apologize for that. GWP is the Greater Wichita Partnership, which is a public-private entity that a lot of the things like biomed and all of the magnificent things we're doing in Sedgwick County and which City of Wichita runs through that particular shop. We have to have IT, right? We have to have computers. We have to have technology. We have to have a human resource. We employ about 2,800, 2,900 people in Sedgwick County. So you can imagine that comes with its own hiring and processing of that kind of office. We have attorneys. You have to have attorneys in every business, right? So the Sedgwick County has a legal office that their client is the Sedgwick County Commission, and they give them legal advice on how to maneuver all the complexities of county government. And then we have to run a fleet, we have to have buildings, we have to have security, just like any other company or corporation in the city of Wichita, and that's all under administrative function. And then I mentioned a few of the ancillary functions before. When you think about county government, you may not think about. We have our managing partner of the arena is our CFO, so Interest Bank Arena, Exploration Place, the zoo. We have some parks. We have 3 parks. We have Lake Afton, we have Sedgwick County Park, and then we have a Furley Park up in the northeast part of the county. So we have some park system which we also have to manage and be responsible for. And we try to do all of this under one budget in 1 year, and we try to do it as effectively and as efficiently as we can. And you can see by all the moving pieces, it's a challenge. I think the city of Wichita has 18 departments. They're big departments, a lot of people. They got a huge police department and a huge fire department. The county has a lot of more moving pieces in departments, a lot less people, but still equally challenging to manage. So with that, I will turn it over to Lindsay. She'll take you through our financial situation currently, and then we will go to the next part.
All right, thank you, Tom. Good evening. Just kidding. I'm used to talking to the commission in the morning. I am Lindsay Peruso. I'm the CFO for the county. It is nice to see several familiar faces. So hopefully, though, you'll learn something new as we go through this. So real quick, just to acclimate you to our budget, we do have around a $500 million operating budget per year. You can see how it's broken out. And when Tom referenced that the county has somewhat more departments than what we've heard from the city of Wichita, we actually have about 46. And you can see about 30 of those live within our general government area. And that is a lot of just what it takes to make our government function. That includes our county commissioners, all the folks you've heard about here, Kelly Arnold, our county clerk, Brandy Bailey, our county treasurer, the register of deeds, the appraiser, all of those. But even though we may have 30 county departments in general government, you can see that the bulk of the funding goes to public safety, which has historically been between public safety and public works, those priorities that we've heard from constituents, from all of you. And so you can see $209 million of that in the 2024 budget is dedicated to serving public safety, and that does include the fire district. You can see another $91 million is allocated to public services, although a hefty portion of that actually comes through grant funds. There's actually a relatively minimal amount of property tax dollars that go to support aging, CDDO, the health department, ComCare, those types of departments. Then you can see Public Works has a budget of about $38 million. Again, a good chunk of that actually comes from the half-cent sales tax. I don't know if all of you know this, but there is a 1-cent sales tax in Sedgwick County. By ballot measure, half of those dollars are dedicated to road and bridge support. The other half go into the general fund for the county to offset property taxes. And so about half of what you see for Public Works actually reflects those dollars. We have culture and recreation, as Tom spoke about just a few moments ago on our org chart. You can see community development, of which the most significant portion actually goes to fund Wichita State University. Another thing that a lot of people don't know is that Sedgwick County, of its 29-ish mills, actually has 1.5 mills dedicated that go to WSU. The county has no say in how those dollars are used. We're simply a pass-through to help support those dollars. And so that is the main portion of funding that you see here. And then finally, we all have to pay our debts. And so bond and interest goes toward paying off facilities. An example is actually the one you're sitting in right now. We are continuing to pay off the debt for this NCAT facility. So it's nice to be here tonight. We'll pay that off in 2028. So please take extra good care for the next few years when you come in. So moving on then, just kind of a different way of looking at it. It's the exact same information you just saw on your last slide, but a little bit easier way to interpret that same data. So I just told you about the budget, but how do we pay for it all? So Tom spoke about property taxes, and I think a large reason for why we're here tonight and why it's important for us to have community engagement is what you'll hear about in a couple of slides about our financial situation. We are looking at having to make some difficult decisions. You can see that 40% of our budget comes from property taxes. That's between Sedgwick County government and Fire District number 1. You can see charges for service are in second, a pretty significant second place. And so that is another area that we're looking at through this budget process is, are there opportunities to make sure that folks who are consuming services are able to pay a fair amount for those services so that property taxpayers maybe don't have to subsidize as much. And then you can see how the rest breaks out. When I mentioned sales and use tax, you can see we get about $40 million. We do share that revenue with every city in the county. And so that is based on population and property tax levy. So we actually only get about 20% of the total proceeds that come into Sedgwick County. The rest is actually shared with those 20 cities. So we do have some good news as we head into the rest of this evening. We do have a AAA credit rating. It's the highest possible rating you can have. And we consistently see that that's because this commission steps in and makes the hard decisions when necessary to correct any budget imbalances and has good financial management. We also, the community will hear about this on Wednesday. We actually have now our 4th perfect audit in a row. We are absolutely ecstatic and thrilled about that. Not that we can improve, but what they have found is that we don't have any material misstatements or any issues with how we're reporting out that data. Our debt balances are fantastic. Again, that goes into our AAA credit rating. We have a consistently low price of government ratio, where basically we look at how much revenue is coming into the government relative to the total value of personal income in the community, and we continue to be very, very low. With a mill levy comparison, we're actually lower. The commission took intentional action last year to reduce the mill levy rate below 29 mills. Our staffing numbers are improving. I know that everyone in this room has heard about the workforce shortages, and we know those aren't going away anytime soon. So you'll see that on the next slide too, but for now, it's a positive thing. We know that economic development and growth, we hear great things about biomedical campus and those things, but of course we're all right now, I think, a little bit on waiting with bated breath to see what happens with Spirit Aerosystems. We heard the unfortunate news about some layoffs in our community, and we need to see how our community can respond to help those folks out, and then what the long-term ripple effects will be there. We do also have some very exciting projects that the county is working on now, renovating the courthouse to be completely dedicated to the courts. Our ComCare Crisis Center is going to be expanded and relocated. Our elections office also is being relocated, actually very near to here. We know that we are currently discussing a corrections juvenile campus and then the state mental health hospital that is in the works that is going to be a huge victory, I think, for our community, our sheriff and DA in particular. But none of this comes without challenges. Just like everything at home, our costs are going up too. We have had significant support from the federal government with ARPA funding. Sedgwick County government alone received $100.2 million. By the end of this year, we have to figure out exactly how that's going to be spent, or we get to repay some of that back, and obviously we want to try and invest that in things that will have long-term positive impact for the community. We do have a structural imbalance in the budget. You'll see this on the next couple of slides. Unfortunately, we're in a position right now with our flat mill levy rate on the county side that we actually expect to see a $4.9 million structural imbalance, which means that when we look at just the normal operating revenues and the normal operating expenses, we take out all the one-time money. Everybody's making good money off investments right now, right? But we know that eventually interest rates will go down. So we're counting on that as one-time money. So when we take that out of the equation, when we take out one-time projects like the capital projects that you saw, we are staring down that $5 million operating deficit. And that's before our commission gets to start talking about the more than $9 million worth of asks that they heard through their budget hearings just a few weeks ago. Now, they actually heard more than that, but that's just the portion that would have to come from property tax funds. So some significant challenges ahead for our commission as they look to balance the budget. We know that there are pressures from property taxes. We know that there are state pressures, right? We all know that as the legislature continues to talk about its taxes and its tax plan, that could have a ripple effect here. And then we know that the court and the jail continues to be kind of the bearer of the brunt of the mental health and substance abuse issues that are happening in our community. And there are many projects underway to try and help solve those, but they're not here yet. And so in the meantime, that's something that this community has to grapple with. So then shifting to our forecast and economic outlook. So we're talking budget and then we're talking forecast. I'm sure you guys are like, what in the world are you talking about? Can you commit to one or the other? So the budget is just a one-time spending limit. It's not a challenge for us to spend that much money. It's just how much we are authorized to spend in the course of a year. Whereas the financial forecast, just like a weather forecast, is what do we think is really going to happen based on the best available information we have now. And so when I talk about deficits and that kind of thing, I'm actually referring to the forecast. So I'm going to show you what the forecast is here in a moment, but before we do that, I want to make sure that everyone here understands what's included. So right now, we plan for all current services, that everything that a constituent receives a service for today is still included in this forecast. If we have any capital projects that we were talking about before, those are in here if they've already been approved. And then unfortunately, we know that our auto license fund, and poor Brandy is here and gets to hear me talk about this. Unfortunately, the way the state has set up fees for that auto license fund, those fees aren't covering the costs of providing that mandated state function. And so that means that Sedgwick County then is responsible to step in and fill that gap. And unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess it depends on how you look at it, we are the 105th county now in the state that has had to be in the position to do that. Every other county has had to do it before us. Now we're finally there. And unfortunately, based on growth in compensation and health insurance and those revenues staying basically flat, we actually expect that that subsidy will be about $1.5 million by the end of our 2029 term. So that's another area where you'll probably see where we talk about state pressures. This is a real one right here. We also include, again, a stable mill levy rate. The commission aimed for 29 mills, but we got a little lucky last year, got a little extra revenue, so the mill levy rate actually went down just a bit. We do not have any of that $9 million that I mentioned for new programs, so that only makes the deficit worse. We don't have any unbudgeted community or economic development requests. We all know that government seems to have deep pockets when we talk about a $500 million budget, but when you start talking about those deficits, we're a little leaner than maybe folks think. We also know that technology continues to evolve, and we get to evolve with it. Certainly, unfortunately, the recent high-profile cyber attacks bring technology needs even more to the surface, and so we don't have anything that might come about from that, nor do we have any new capital improvement projects. When we look at our key revenue assumptions, we assume that the community is going to continue to grow, that we're going to continue to add to the bottom line assessed value. But we're also assuming that while the community probably will grow greater than this based on recent data, we're assuming that the county commission is going to continue to take steps to limit how much of that growth it captures in passing along property taxes. We also think that sales tax growth is probably pretty moderated. After the last years of booming economic indicators, we saw sales taxes improve by more than 10%. That has caught up to all of us. People are carrying more debt, and so there's less disposable income. And we're actually seeing that already this year. Again, as we talked about, those motor vehicle taxes, just because of that pent-up supply, it's taking a while to catch up. So our motor vehicle tax growth is moderated. We do expect our medical service charges to continue to go up for our EMS services, our con care and health, those entities that we provide, that we are actually a medical provider. And then finally, as we discussed, we expect investment income to continue to grow through this year. But on the good side, when that interest rate comes down, that's going to help us if we have to go do bonding. But on the flip side, we're not going to earn as much on the cash that we collect. We do have some pretty significant expenditure assumptions. All of this, of course, pends any decision that the commission makes. Right now, we know that we're still in an extremely competitive workforce, and while we have made gains, we know that we want to sustain those gains, not lose to other local competitors. And so that means that for 2025 and 2026, right now, we have 5% pay pools included in the forecast, returning to a more typical 4% in the years thereafter. We do expect that our health insurance increases will go up 5% per year. Now, a lot of other places, you'll see 10 or 15%. We're very fortunate because we have a self-insured pool, and we have been able to keep those costs down. And then you can see some of the other smaller indicators here. So what does that mean? Bottom line, here's your bottom line. Beautiful KU colors as I stand in NCAT. So you can see red is for revenue, blue are expenditures, and the scale on here makes it a little challenging, but what you should know is that even with that investment income, that strong investment income that we're expecting, we still anticipate a deficit next year of about $1 million. In 2026, that reaches $4 million. In 2027, it's up above $6 million. And in 2028, it's about $4 million. Now, again, I talked about operating revenues and operating expenses. So again, when we smooth all of that out, we are expecting a $4.9 million structural imbalance, and that is what the commission has stated. We have a 2-year glide path to try and correct. And so again, getting back to Tom's point of why we're here tonight, we really want to hear from citizens about what is most important. What's the core service that you expect delivery on? And where do you see maybe not so core, so that we can try and prioritize and help commissioners through the budget process. So with that, Nicole, do you want me to just jump into this, or do you want to come speak to it? I will invite Nicole Gibbs, our Strategic Communications Director, to come and talk through. I'll get it for you.
Again, as mentioned, I am Nicole Gibbs, Director of Strategic Communications. We wanted to take you through where we have been with our budget journey this year and what is upcoming. So in February, we had a budget workshop, and you can see those are hyperlinked here, but if you go out to our YouTube, you can see what those are, and you can see those meetings for yourself. Just recently, at the beginning of May, we had commissioner budget hearings, and those are broken out by the dates that you see in the departments. Again, if you go to YouTube and you find that date, you can actually click on which department you want to hear, and it'll go straight to that on, excuse me, on the link. Our next steps that we are doing is, so you are here at the May 20 Roundtable. We are having one more of these. It'll be the same type of setting, but we're going to have it at Campus High School on June 4th from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. The most important updates, July 10th is when the county manager will present his recommended budget to the Board of County Commissioners. We'll have our first public hearing regarding the 2025 recommended budget on July 31st at 6 p.m. And then on August 21st at 9 a.m. at the regular BOCC meeting, we'll have the second public hearing, and then we'll also have the adoption of the budget. And now we are going to take the opportunity to have you guys to be part of the discussion. There are 8 of you. I think what we'll do is we'll just keep it to 2 groups. We'll do 2 groups today. So what I'd like, if it's possible, we'll have Sheena Schmutz, I can't talk today, sorry. She's our Chief of Human Resources Officer. And then I also have Tim Kaufman, our Deputy County Manager, and those 2 will lead 2 groups. We'll go ahead and stay here in the room. And so I will send Sheena to the opposite side, if you don't mind. And then Tim, if you'll come up here to the front. We'd like to have 4 people in each group. We will have a budget analyst in each of the groups to take notes. And then on top of that, also, we'll have leadership team walking around to answer any questions if by chance those 2 very knowledgeable people cannot. The plan for this is to have 30 minutes. We have about 7 questions that we want to kind of lead you through the conversation, some ideas and things that we're looking for feedback from you guys, but then also that will lead you to the large group feedback session that we have after this that Tom mentioned at the beginning. So this is your time to ask questions, share any comments with those folks, and we'll go ahead and break if you don't mind, please. Thank you, everyone, for the great discussion. I wandered around and there was a lot of great questions asked, and so we appreciate you being here. We'll take just a few minutes. If you want to stay where you are, great. You will be able to answer the large or the group feedback survey from where you are, or if you want to go back to where you're sitting, that's fine too. So this, as mentioned earlier, you can take on your smartphone. If you absolutely don't want to use your phone, that's fine. We do have paper copies. If you'll raise your hand and let us know, we can get you a paper copy. But at this time, if you want to scan the QR code that you see on the screen, it is also on the agenda in front of you, if that one's easier for you. The intention of this survey is for the public attendees that are here, so if you guys would definitely log in that way. You should see the screen on the left. It says that we're waiting for the presentation to begin. Okay, I'm going to shift the screen just a little bit to get where we need to go. But again, that QR code is on the paper in front of you. Okay, so you should have this first question come up. What did you learn from the presentation that was new to you? This is an open-ended response. So if you want to put in your biggest aha moment that you had today, we'd love to record that. Also, just so that you know, this will show live on the screen. It is anonymous, but everyone will get to see the feedback as well. Last call for paper, or is everybody good? Okay, we'll take just a few more moments and we will move to our next question. We do have 7 questions total, and this one is our first. The rest are easy from here because it's either a ranking or you choose, so you don't have to put in a whole bunch of words. Okay, going once, going twice. And to our next question, rank from the most to the least the following characteristics that you feel best align with Sedgwick County. On this one, you will click on the item and there should be arrows that show up for you to be able to drag or drop or move them up different levels. So this is a ranking question. Give folks just a few more moments on this question. Everybody ready to go to the next one? Okay, we will head to question 3. This one you will choose 6, and it is the Sedgwick County government services that you feel are done well. Looks like our chart is slowing down. We'll give you guys just a few more moments. Okay, I think we're ready to head to the next question unless somebody is. All right, here we go. Question 4. Which 3 Sedgwick County government services do you feel are not a core service? And you get to pick 3. Again, just a reminder, this is what you feel is not a core service of Sedgwick County government. Okay, we're going to finish up here in just one moment and head to the next question. All right, question 5. This question, you get to choose 3 again. What are your top 3 priorities for Sedgwick County government to allocate budget resources to? So again, if you have that pot of money, where do you want that pot of money to go? Okay, the last call for answers. All right, question 6. The hardest one of them all. If the commissioners were to lower property taxes, what would be your top 3 areas where funding could be trimmed? And again, you get 3 options. Rounding out question 6. All right, headed to question 7. This is another ranking one. So this is the one where you can drag and drop. Rank from most to least, with most being on the top, least being on the bottom. Your most important following topics that have been let's try that again. Rank from most to least important the following Sedgwick County issues that should be focused on in the next coming years. This was one of your discussions in your small group that we wanted to try and make sure you guys understood, so that as the commission has these discussions and these priorities that come up, we were able to get feedback from you. We'll take just a few more moments. Again, just a reminder, this is a completely anonymous survey, so I can't go back and figure out who answered what. But we do appreciate the feedback. It will give us opportunities for discussion as the county manager goes into his recommended budget and future budget conversations. I want to take just a quick moment to remind you what is coming up. We have the One More Budget Roundtable discussion on June 4th at Campus High School. So if you know someone that would be interested to give their feedback and be part of this process, please invite them. Again, it's June 4th at Campus High School, 5:30 to 7:30. It'll be the exact same thing that you saw here. And then in our major budget process, we have July 10th, which is when the recommended budget will be presented from the county manager. July 31st, we'll have our first public hearing for feedback, and then August 21st, they will have a second public hearing and adoption of the 2025 budget. All of these items, the upcoming budget meetings, July 10, 31, and August 21, will all be streamed live on our social media channels. So if you can't be there in person, you can at least watch and see what the conversation is. And with that, one last thing. If by chance we were unable to answer your question, we do have these little cards out on the front table for you guys to submit additional questions, and we can get back to you or look into what comment you might have.
That's, in case we miss something, that's how they communicate back. All right, we have one technical question that Lindsay's going to clean up here real quick, and then we will conclude.
So I heard there was a question in this group, and I was in that group, and that was about credit ratings and how many counties have it. I am thrilled to say that Sedgwick County is one of 2 in the state of Kansas and one of 106 in the country that has a AAA rating. So we are very proud of that. And that's my last thing.
Thank you for your time. We posterize all of this. We take the notes from the small group. The little bit I was able to listen into both small groups, excellent discussion. We have notes from that. We'll have this posterized. And as Nicole said, if you have any other questions, and my email, I'll put this on the slide for the next time, but my email is thomas.stolz, and it's STOLZ @sedgwick.gov. So if we missed something tonight, or you want to have other questions, don't hesitate, especially during the next 8 weeks, to let us know. So with that, thank you so much for coming out tonight. This helps a lot. I'll be glad to, anybody want to do the budget for the county? We're taking volunteers, but we'll figure it out between now and August. Yes, sir. You'll do it? Okay. All right. We'll welcome you to the table. Everyone have a good evening. Thank you for coming out.